Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a good evening to all on this 9th of July. We are, of course, in the times of which we're living in right now, which is the COVID-19, the spread of this virus. And as we watch families and friends going through the motions, dealing with the virus, healing from the virus, and of course, some succumbing to the virus. And as we know, among those that have been taken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is none other than Shaykh Seraj Hendricks of the Azzawia in Cape Town. That is not only the Imam at the Azzawia or the Sheikh of the Azzawia, but a man of many achievements, a man that has touched many lives, that has given life and blood to many institutes that have formed in the country and has definitely left his mark on our country's academic and scholarship landscape from an Islamic perspective. And this evening we'll be speaking to Yusuf Maulana, to Muhammad Fasih Peterson, and inshallah, if we can get hold of him, Yasin Kipi, all three of whom have interacted with Sheikh in different capacities during their young lives at the Azzawia. So the idea is to speak to young people who have interacted with Sheikh Seraj Hendricks. And I, of course, have my own memory of Sheikh as a Musalli of the Masjid in Jumu'ah every now and again when I was in Cape Town. But we will bring Yusuf on first. And after bringing Yusuf on, we'll be joined by Fasih. And if we are fortunate, then by Yasin as well. And hopefully we'll close the program this evening with the recitation of Suratul Ikhlas. And we also invite many to join the Azzawia's own Facebook page at 8:15 tonight, where there will be a recitation of dhikr for the Ithal Tawab of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks and for all those who are ill as well. So without any further ado, we can bring Yusuf Maulana as well as Fasih Peterson on, inshallah. We do have both of these guests with us this evening, both of whom have grown up with the Azzawia as their playground, in the beginning, and then later on a place where their skills were harnessed towards the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the salawat of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they can tell us a bit about how Shaykh Siraj actually formed part of that person that you are addressed by on a Jumu'ah, that person that you ask advice from, that person that you greet afterwards. And as growing up as a youngster in that environment, the mark that he had left on your lives. But, first off, just to say that Shaykh Siraj was the resident Sheikh of the Azzawia in Cape Town and the holder of the Maqasid chair at the International Peace University, that is IPSA University in South Africa, has studied in Makkah and was appointed as Khalifa of the aforementioned Muhaddith of Hijaz, distinguished Sayyid Muhammad bin Awlaki al-Maliki, the master of the Tariqa, Ulama Makkah, and the Sufi path of the Meccan scholars. And there's so much more to say about not only Shaykh Siraj, but about his family and their achievements in the Islamic landscape of our country. But without further ado, we're going to be speaking now to Yusuf Maulana and to Muhammad Fasih Peterson, both of whom have grown up in the masjid. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, first of all, to both of you.
Wa alaikum salam wa
Wa alaikum
rahmatullahi
salam
wa
wa barakatuh, Shakil. Thank you for having us.
Yes, I it's really a pleasure to have both of you. I'm sure, the two of you definitely probably have been either gathering this evening already or tomorrow morning for the final janaza of Shaykh Siraj, or perhaps, engaging yourselves in tilawat al-Quran around the maid of Shaykh. But of course, that won't be taking place due to the COVID-19 virus and that which he had succumbed to as well, and us having to be socially distant, myself based in Johannesburg as well, perhaps having done something similar with our brothers and sisters here, who of course knew Shaykh and had benefited from him either in person or via his text and online, as the Azzawia engages us. So it's merely for us to try and do justice to somebody that we cannot be with, a family that we cannot give our condolences to, and hear from you guys the stories. As we know, us who are left behind testify for his character as people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is witness to that. So we hope to do justice to that, inshallah. So Yusuf, I'll start with you. If you could tell us a bit about how you experienced Shaykh Siraj as a youngster in the masjid and later on with the Maulud Jama, and what all these things have meant for you, perhaps even some advices or moments that you remember. I know you said many things on a Jumu'ah khutbah, and many of which were definitely stuff that we remember as youngsters. Perhaps we'll take that into our old age, inshallah. But before I relate some of my own memories, I think we'd like to hear from you, because those advices remain as a sadaqah for him long after his passing, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Shakil. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very sad moment for all of us to have lost our dear Shaykh Seraj Hendricks. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illuminate his qabr and grant him the highest place in Jannah. Indeed, you know, he was an asset to the community, an asset to South Africa and the Muslim world in general. It will be very difficult to replace someone, of that caliber. As for my memories of him, many fond memories. Having grown up, as you mentioned, in the neighborhood around the masjid, Sheikh Siraj. When I was a little boy, I'd just come back from Makkah. We completed, over 10 years of study, and so I obviously remember him, but also his uncle who was the imam there before him, and it was Friday Jummah was something that one looked forward to, because it was Sheikh Siraj and Sheikh Ahmad who alternated the lectures. Sheikh Siraj, often, I think what one admired most about him was that he was, extremely intellectual, but also highly spiritual. So, he was able to marry the two in a wonderful way, which, I think definitely uplifted the community and, in terms of improving our thinking about modern matters. He was an individual who, was very interested in how Muslims should behave and interact with, in a country in which they were, not the majority. And so many of those things, he was a pioneer for. I think the lessons learned are too numerous to go into, in this talk show. But I would say, just by sitting with him, you could sense his humility and his knowledge. And in several of what you call in Cape Town the big nights, you would look forward to his lectures, which I think there were people who recorded those, and I think those should be, to the extent possible, we should distribute those, as a lasting legacy of Sheikh Siraj. And importantly, I think, to continue what he called the radical middle way, not fall into extremism. And I think that was a wonderful gift that he left us intellectually and spiritually. I don't think I can do justice to him in this short space of time, but I'm very grateful and honored to be able to sit here with you and to honor him. Alhamdulillah.
Shukran to you, Yusuf. We'll get back to you a bit later again, after we speak to Fasih, inshallah. Fasih, yourself, of course, having spent time in Azzawia and among the company of Sheikh and others, what can you share with us from your learnings and your some pearls of wisdom that you perhaps have gained from Sheikh in your personal life, or even as a member of the Jama'ah as well?
Well, firstly, Shakil, once again, assalamu alaikum to you and to everyone who was listening, and also to you, Yusuf. Just, one of the things that goes through my mind is just the great loss of a man, the caliber of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks. And, when we talk about this, we're not just saying this because we spent our lives and grew up in front of a man of his caliber, but the impact that he had not only on the community but also on the world. He was a sheikh who was highly respected and recognized globally for the impact that he had in terms of the level of knowledge, level of ilm that he brought, and the fact that his teachings were based largely on adab and akhlaq, center to anything and everything. Obviously adab before ilm, al-adab fawqa al-ilm, as we understand it. And I think I find myself fortunate as a young person, having grown up in that environment, where I was privy to these teachings and these messages from or so many other messages that were out there and still are out there this at this point in time. When you talk about recollections, and experiences, Sheikh Siraj had a great respect for people in general. He loved the elderly, he loved young people. And, one thing that I can recollect, for instance, you'd go to Sheikh on a Friday after Jum'ah, and you'd maybe ask him a question after so many other murids, so many other, of the congregation had approached him, and he'd still have the opportunity to stand there and he'd still listen to you. Number one. Number two is he'd give you the most sincere advice he could. And number three is I would find perhaps the next Jum'ah that the question I had asked him would then become a topic of discussion without him mentioning who asked him this question, but it would be woven to his next khutbah. So in essence, something that someone asked him, a random person asked him out of the Jama'ah, becomes something that he saw value in being able to teach. And I see Yusuf, you're smiling there, being able to use that to teach others. So he was able to find the benefit in absolutely everything. And when I look at, just my interactions with him, a very open personality. He was the same person on the mimbar, or in front of the masjid, as he was outside, as he was in his personal capacity. And I did interact with him on different levels, also engaging with him as a hakim of the Christian Observer Society. I saw him regularly, alhamdulillah. I was privileged to do so whenever moon sightings would occur, because he would preside over the decision as the hakim of whether or not the moon had been sighted, after collating all of that information. And all the discussions that took place afterwards, and just those gems of wisdom that flowed from him, something that I'm going to miss most definitely. And I think that all that we are left with at this moment, apart from sadness, is and this huge loss, is a sense of appreciation of the man that we'd come to know our entire lives. And we make to Allah grant him Jannatul Firdaus, raise him in the stages of Jannah, and raise him with the beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his company on the day of Qiyamah, inshallah.
Ameen. I think for me what was so interesting was that you're attending a Jummah lecture that's first of all free of charge on Waqf ground, and yet the level of knowledge that you're receiving is fit for a university. It's the way that it's put forth is somewhat fit for a university, but you also in your grandparents' kitchen at the same time, and that just spoke to the way that he was able to understand his Jama'ah, that some among the Jama'ah are, of course, people that have university education. Some of his Jama'ah are well versed in English, some are well versed in Afrikaans, and some understand the Arabic language. And there are many that don't fit into either of those brackets, but almost all. And he was able to speak to each one of them. And you often have to listen very, very closely, because his English is so polished, but in Afrikaans, you need to just make sure that you fine-tune yourself, because it is very quick. And yet at the end of the day, you did leave there feeling very inspired. And not only that, you felt that even those that had departed, if, for example, somebody had departed in the week leading up to Jum'ah, that even their presence was noted, because Sheikh would stand there, and I'm sure the other Shaykh do this as well, is to make note of their absence and say that so-and-so would have been here, and Jannah, inshallah, Amin. And not forget that, yes, the wheels of the bus go round and round, and so too will they, but that those people have a place in the Jama'ah of Muslims, at that masjid in particular and in general, and that it's not merely that you are forgotten a week later. And I think now that people are not able to do a similar thing for the Sheikh in this space and time that we live in, well, I think force us to do a deeper reflection on his work and his messages, as opposed to merely just going there reciting a Yasin, or being part of the collective rendition of salawat, and feeling that is enough, or that we've done justice, as we often do think so. And often with janazas, having a meal even afterwards, and alles is no klaar, we finished now, the person is buried. But I think in this case, having no physical meeting place around this incident is forcing many of us to actually look at what he taught. And the way he sometimes spoke, I remember once about the mountain and about the weather, and how us as the human race are actually just manifestations of Allah's creation, just like those things, just like the mountain, just like the rain that falls. And of course, we know the Azzawia is perched just on the foothills of Table Mountain. So when you leave that masjid and you look at the image of what's outside waiting for you, and the way that it links to what has been mentioned in the dars for that Friday, it's only somebody that knows Allah, that connects to Allah, and uses their five senses after having gained spiritually from meeting with Allah through adhkar and deeds that are done quietly, can one come with words so deeply connected to what is outside and in the natural world. So I do understand that Sheikh was also part of many other institutes. I don't know to which belong either of you, if you guys are part of any of those institutes as well, but or even just students of his in a formal way at the institute, or just merely members of the Jama'ah. But if there is anything else that you perhaps know, incidents that have taken place even of your childhood, or even recently as the Maulud Jama'ah, I do understand that the Azzawia is known for conducting its affairs quite eloquently and quite esteemedly, and it leaves a mark on people like myself who don't live in the area and come there every now and again. What can you tell us? We have about 10 minutes left. What else can you tell us? We had hoped to have been joined by Yasin Kipi as well, but the two of you, of course, have had your experiences, and I'd like to go a bit further into it, inshallah. So either of you, and please feel free to interrupt one another, if you feel like. I know Yusuf was relating to something that Fasih was saying. Don't hesitate to actually join each other in what you are saying.
I think before anything else, and I think Yusuf probably can relate to this, is the fact that just going back to before talking about the memories, but also talking about the fact that Sheikh acknowledged each and every single member of that Jama'ah, if who but passed away, was not there anymore. He had a personal relationship with the Murid, and I think that's been the culture of the Azzawia, having a personal relationship with the Murid, having grown up in front sometimes of some of the more elderly, and the great respect that they had, and would be wanting to kiss the hands of the elder, Murid as well. The fact that this is a man of great knowledge, of great, alhamdulillah, of great wisdom, whom we have lost. Someone who had the ability and the foresight as a esteemed Sheikh to inspire young people, whom today, both as students of the Medina Institute, and unfortunately we don't have any students with us here, but students of the Medina Institute, perhaps young people even of the Jama'ah, the Maulud Jama'ah, or of the classes that who attended Azzawia, and on various other platforms that Sheikh participated, they are feeling the loss today because there was someone who spoke directly to them, did not speak down to them, but spoke directly to them, someone who understood their condition and understood their challenges, and was able to provide them with guidance, and was able to provide them with a sense of direction. And I think also when we talk about the culture of the Azzawia in terms of the understanding of Maulud, for instance, Sheikh appreciated and loved the Maulud, and one of the things that he mentioned was when he was in Makkah, when he was studying at Qura, this was what they missed for all those years that they were away, was the Maulud and the activity that happened at the Azzawia, and the beauty of the Maulud and how it was conducted, and so reminiscing on that, and the fact that that culture was firmly entrenched in his heart, and the fact that he appreciated it so much, and imparting that sense of love and that level of love through his teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the community, that even entrenched that love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even more. I think just Yusuf, if you look at your experiences, I mean, you've been part of the Maulud Jama'ah for quite some time now, and you've also benefited from the lectures that Sheikh had given, these beautiful lectures that just reconstructed the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other aspects, learning something different about an event, that we kind of become familiar with over a period of time, but learning something different every time you have the opportunity to actually be in his presence on that occasion.
Jazakallah, shukran, Fasih, Muhammad Fasih. I think you're absolutely 100% correct. On the Miraj, for example, or on the Maulud, one could often there would be an element of familiarity in the lecture, and then as Muhammad Fashikh points out, there'd be something new that one didn't know before. I think it comes from the fact that Sheikh Siraj was a fountain of knowledge, and one looks back and you just wish you had drunk more from that fountain. Unfortunately, but those are just the we must be grateful that we were able to spend time in his presence. I was fortunate, that for many years I worked close to Wilmer State. I was able to come back for Jummah to the mosque. That is something that since I've I changed jobs subsequently and moved quite a bit away from Wilmer State, and without any disrespect to any other sheikh, I think one does, perhaps for familiarity reasons, you miss the lectures of the shuyukh, in particular Sheikh Seraj and Sheikh Ahmad. I think almost at a loss for words, Shakil, but yeah.
Yeah, no, inshallah, I believe we are going to be joined by Yasin Kipi quite shortly, alhamdulillah, and that's somebody that we know is learning in the institute, a student of the institute as well as a teacher in the institute, and somebody that's younger than the two of you and some way older than myself, who can give us some insight as well. I had also asked, Assalamu alaikum, I had also asked one of the aunties or the sisters of the Maulid, side of things to come on, but they were feeling a bit sad and unable to speak to us this evening. But we also should remember that part of the community was very much included by the likes of Shaykh Siraj, even in the lectures, as well as in terms of the programs that took place there. And I think many have gained and learned under Sheikh. Those who speak about it and those who don't. And in life, the nature of these people is that when they leave, their advice only comes to us when practiced upon some way in life. You'll remember, but Sheikh said this or Imam said this, and I suppose that will only come to be known as time goes on. But from my side, I think I have to agree with Yusuf when coming from Johannesburg to Cape Town on holiday, sometimes I'll be there for 2 Jumu'ahs on the trip or only 1 Jumu'ah, not to choose where am I going to go. And, it will be between a few different masajid, but often because of family in the area and having to enjoy lunch with family as well, it would be natural that I'd end up at the Azzawia and never ever having had regrets to say, but I should have went somewhere else, because I always believe that message is meant for you on that day. And many had made the choice to stay with that masjid despite moving far out of the area to the outskirts of the city. As we know, the masjid has stood there through and before the Group Areas Act had come into place as well, and many remained, as they say, Banguru or members of that masjid years later, as well as the other masajid in the area in District 6 as well. And this is testament to the tartib of these masajid and the way, I suppose, that they include each and every murid in their gatherings, and as Fasih said, even in the nasiha given, what is gained and what is given comes from the engagement with the people directly, and that is something that social media cannot replace. That is something that Zoom durus or Zoom dars or Zoom Jummah lectures cannot replace, because those discussions afterwards, of course, play into what they gain to understand to be the condition of the people, as Fasih also mentioned. And some might say, Sheikh has places to go to after Jummah. I'm sure many shuyukh do have places to be afterwards, but them taking that time to speak to each and every person, it's almost as a doctor would have a queue of people lining up, seeking medical advice from them. These people that knew and that know the heart and the condition of our hearts are, of course, our spiritual doctors, and so deserve and so need consultation from us as well, as we gain from them. And those queues were never too long for the likes of Shaykh Siraj. But I see that, alhamdulillah, we are joined by Yasin Kipi, and Yasin is currently a student at the institute, the Azzawia Institute, as well as with the Medina Institute. And so Yasin has, of course, worked with Sheikh far as somebody to look up to, somebody to take knowledge from, and somebody that I don't doubt has left an indelible mark on his life as a young scholar of Deen in Cape Town. So Yasin, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran for joining us. We do hope to understand some of your experiences with Shaykh Siraj as a youngster growing up, as well as now currently taking your own path to Allah's knowledge and to sacred knowledge, as we benefit from the life of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks this evening. And when we do close eventually, it will be with a short rendition of the Surah Al-Ikhlas and the Salawat, as we would have liked to have done had we been with Shaykh Siraj, the Mayit of Shaykh Siraj, as well as the family that we cannot be with and embrace at this time as a community, not only a community in Cape Town or Womay State in particular, but a community nationally and a community globally. So that, Yasin, onto you, inshallah, to give us some of your understandings and wisdom gained from the likes of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks, inshallah.
Well, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Shakil, and apologies for not joining earlier. The problem that we face in the world as Muslims often, confronts us as overwhelming, especially for young people, if there are no guides to actually show us the way in order to equip ourselves with the necessary skills to address them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us in the Quran that the people who know him are the stars, and they are the rivers that guide us upon our path in society. Shaykh Seraj Hendricks was certainly someone who gave his entire life to his own education, to become an erudite scholar, in order to serve the community in the best way possible. Now you have to understand the situation that he was put in. That he was born into an institution that had gone for decades before him. His grandfather was Sheikh Muhammad Salih Hendricks, who as a young boy, when the great Sayyid Abdul Aziz Al Maliki had come on the ships, of course, in the 1800s to Cape Town. They obviously spent a while here, and everyone had known this, the great Sayyid. His son indeed was the Qadi of Mecca, the Maliki Qadi. He was looking for at the Muslims in Cape Town and kind of thinking, okay, wow, these people, even though they've been enslaved for so long, finally when slavery ends and the ships can come to Mecca, I see a community that's already influenced by the message of great scholars like Al-Ghazali and Al-Razi, etc. And he looks at a young Muhammad Salih, the son of Imam Abdullah Al-Hajj, and he says to his father, Ya Imam Abdullah, let him come with me to Mecca. And so his father says, no, he needs to go and study medicine, right? He needs to go and study medicine because he needs to become a doctor. And the Sheikh says, no, he will come with me because he will become a doctor of the hearts. And certainly that is what occurred. That he went to Mecca, he spent more than 20 years in Mecca. So much so that he forgot Afrikaans when he came back to Cape Town. He couldn't speak Afrikaans. He on his way home, to Cape Town, he stopped in Zanzibar. He was part of the Lajna of the Muftis there as well. So this was kind of the introduction of the influence of the Hendricks family as a family of scholarship, but also as a family of spiritual secrets that the community requires within troubling times. And so after he passed on, of course, in 1945, his sons, the likes of Sheikh Mahdi Hendricks, the likes of Sheikh Rahim Hendricks and Sheikh Mujahid Hendricks, particularly the three of them, even though the other sons were also from the ulama, including Sheikh Siraj's father, Imam Hassan, they continued the legacy, and of course studied with Sayyid Abbas al-Maliki, and of course Sayyid Ali al-Maliki as well, with Sheikh Mujahid. And finally, at the particular age, Shaykh Seraj himself was now tasked to go, even though he was the son of the only brother among them who was not seen as had learned to the degree that he had learned. Imam Hassan. And this was quite surprising. And I remember Sheikh Siraj telling me that he was going to become an actor. He wasn't going to become a sheikh. He was ready to go to whatever school he needed to go to, or whatever other avenue in life. But it was really the age that I'm at now that he decided, okay, this has become my mission in life, and I have to go and do this. But if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this correctly. And he said, from the moment he decided to seek knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to benefit people, for the benefit of people, he employed two aspects which I've seen in his life completely. And the first one is sidq talab al-ilm, sincerity in seeking knowledge. And the other one is, of course, high aspirations, himma aliyah, that the sky wasn't the limit for him. And I always felt that no matter how dire the situation was, and I remember often in Jumu'ah and Fasih, is witness to that. You'd kind of get upset at things. You'd get upset at the state of the ummah. Particularly when the Christchurch shootings happened. You would say that how can we react in the way that we do sometimes? Some people reacted so negatively, to that incident because. And not putting forth, the aspects of Islam, such as mercy and tolerance, that we all, have come to learn. Whenever, that is not placed at the forefront, then we're going to have, extremist people finding root within society and utilizing our extremism as justification for their extremism. So a large part of the message of Shaykh Seraj at moments like this, and he represented this in a global level as well as for us locally, was for us to reposition ourselves by laying down certain criteria of intellectual pursuit, such as that the criteria that I just mentioned of sidq talab al-ilm and himma aliyah, as well as the maqasid of why we are doing what we are doing. What is the purpose of the Sharia? Have we accomplished the maqasid of the Sharia in our society, or are our fatawa simply leading to us following the letter of the law but not the spirit of the law? And so it's some of these small lessons, but that come across constantly with Sheikh Siraj. And of course in our classes, of course, with him, we study texts that focus on this as well, that allow us as his students. And I mean, what I've just said is simply like a drop in the ocean of what he has given us, but to ensure that we as a society are not simply Muslim by name and simply Muslim by law, but that we are Muslim in every single way possible. And that's why you'd always say, what is Islam? Islam is not a way of life only. It's a way of being. It's a way of consciousness. It's much deeper than that. And so I feel that the legacy of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks is within the vision of what it means to be a South African Muslim community, in terms of balancing, those objectives of Islamic community, alongside maintaining a spiritual connection to the divine. Now we have to remember that it's often that he's seen as very intellectual, and he was, of course, constantly on the top 500 most influential Muslims in the world for his intellectual contribution to the society. But he was also a sheikh, and he was also someone who led the community spiritually. And I mean, anyone who came to the Mawlids at the Azzawia would recognize that it's not just a Mawlid because of the Barzanji that's happening, but because of the sheikh sitting there and his talk that he delivers, and the year in, day in and day out, irshad and guidance that Shaykh Seraj gave to the community. So he'll be sorely missed. I spoke to his brother today. I think Shaykh Ahmed. We know he's very quiet, but he's a great leader in our community. And he said he lost his best friend. He lost his best friend, and he's deeply saddened. And so we should all make dua for him, inshallah.
Inshallah. No, I think that Yasin, you've really, I mean, from the beginning of Sheikh Muhammad Salih's time up to the present day, having merely walked us through that journey as fast as you could have. And I know that there's so much more there. I think that would have been a missing element of this evening's discussion. So I really appreciate that from you. And you know, we just before you spoke, we spoke about the doctors of the heart, and then you mentioned the doctors of the heart. So I think there wasn't by any coincidence as well.
Right.
But we really appreciate your time and your reflection on that. And I think you know, interesting to note that Sheikh had other options and had other plans, because somebody would look at the family that he's from and say, no, that's a farrell, you know, om te gaan leer. You have to do it. You can't. There's no way out of it. But obviously, you know, he maybe had other options, and clearly chose the path that led him to where he was. And as it is that, you know, Allah says, or the Hadith says that make the decision and then leave your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as he had done, and that bore many fruits for him, not pointing back towards him, and not that the fingers point to him and say, wow, what a great man, but really that he was actually pointing us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our purpose on this earth. And just fortunate, as I mentioned before you joined us, that the very place that we learned from when attending those lectures was also somewhere where once you step outside, you could appreciate Allah's wonder. And you know, whether it was a cloudy day or a sunny day, you were able to connect that lecture to what was happening outside. But while you were in there, you were effectively in an institute or a college or university where the level of discussion that was being put forth was engaging, it was accessible, it was not too far that you couldn't reach it, but it was not also too low that you heard it before. But each and every one, and as old as the murids are at the masjid and as young as they now are today, there was always this exchange, and you know, sometimes a moment of laughter or a moment of reflection and of silence, and you know, everything was done with such style and such you know, excellence, that leaving would always leave a mark, I think, on everybody that was there, even if it was often that you were there, for those that are there every Friday, or to those that would be there you know, occasionally only. But I'd like to ask Yusuf first if there's anything that you'd like to say in closure, and then Fasih as well, if we can get Fasih back, and then Yasin again, and then I'd like for us to close with a short rendition of a recitation of Quran as well, to the best of our ability on this platform, before we invite many to join at 8:15 the Azzawia's own gathering of Adhkar, which is going to happen for the Shifa of Sheikh Siraj, and is now actually something of a veil or a arwah for the Sheikh upon his departed soul and those of others that have passed away. So Yusuf, if you could, you know, anything that you'd like to say in closure, and then Fasih, if you could join us again, inshallah, and then we'd go to Yasin and then close all of us as well, inshallah.
Thanks, Shakil. Thank you, Yasin. And yeah, I think just before Yasin came on, you mentioned that the Azzawia had been around for many years. In fact, this year the Azzawia turned 100 years old, and I think many celebrations were planned before, you know, the advent of COVID, and you know, a great pity that Sheikh Siraj wouldn't be here for us to celebrate with him. You know, I think the plan was obviously to celebrate with our dear Sheikh, but you know, inshallah we will get that opportunity, you know, to celebrate, and you know, we make dua that Allah will keep the Azzawia strong, that you grant Sheikh Ahmad good health, you know, that Azzawia can continue to pass on the knowledge as it has done for many generations before, inshallah.
Yes, I think, you know, Shukran Yusuf for mentioning that. I think I remember the last time I was in at the Azzawia was sometime in Feb, and Sheikh Ahmad was actually speaking that day, and Sheikh Seraj was doing the Arabic, the khutbah, and Sheikh Ahmad mentioned that, you know, in not so many words, ma die jaar gaan baie, you know, kwai is, if I can say, you know, colloquially, to say that there's a lot's gonna be coming, and we should all hold our. And I was thinking, okay, I better be booking my flights to come back there, and so on, you know, because I just knew that something big would be happening, and you know, maybe we can just say that this is one of those big things that have to happen this year as well. That in the 100th year of the masjid's history, one of its sons is taken, and I say son not literally, but figuratively, a son of the community, a son of the work that he had learned. And that also, like I said earlier, causes us to reflect not only on what is visible to us by the eye, but what's left behind in the lessons that we've all learned. Because of course, with all these events of 100 years of centenary celebrations comes a lot of, fanfare sometimes that distract us even, if enjoyed in the incorrect way. So I think our deprivation of one another and of the company of the shuyukh, and even of all of that which we've been used to as a community, that being taken away and that being deprived, allows us to go deeper into the lessons we've learned. And I'm sure both of you and even myself will go on to, in life, having remembered certain things that we heard in that very lecture, whether it was on Jum'ah or the Mawlid or the Mi'raj or any other evening or night that took place at the masjid. Because as I said, it's often those advices that come to us, not only from shuyukh, but our families as well, that come to us in odd times, that we relate to our own selves or to our friends or our family. But while we try and get Pasif back on, Yasin, I'd like to also ask you if you have any memories, besides obviously relating to us Sheikh's own history, perhaps something that you've taken from him, a memory or an advice or a moment that sticks out to you, inshallah.
Right. So I know Sheikh Siraj since I used to go there, of course, for the Mawlid. I think a lot of people go there originally when they were Mawlid when I was a child. I would actually not go to Azzawia for Eid. Habibia Mosque was the normal mosque I'd go to Eid because I was raised around Habibia. It was really a very interesting moment when I first caught the attention of Shaykh Seraj, and this is a very interesting thing. It's not something which I can say like in a proud way, because this is something that everyone has with Shaykh Seraj. When you feel like you've caught his attention and he treats you in a very unique way, but then you notice he treated everyone like that, and that was actually a prophetic. It was a prophetic, character. The Prophet Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he asked the Prophet once, Ya Rasulullah, who's man habba ilayk, who's the most beloved to you? And so the Prophet said, Aisha. And then he said, okay, well, from the main, Ya Rasulullah. So he said, Abuha, her father, Abu Bakr. I said, no, Ya Rasulullah. I know, of course, Abu Bakr, great person. Then besides him, then he says, Umar. Oh, okay, besides him. He said, then the Prophet listed people until he thought that he would not be mentioned, so he stopped asking because he felt as though he was the most beloved to the Prophet. The same thing with Shaykh Siraj, but I think, if I were to, my memories, for example, he did, tell me often that, if we want to influence the community positively, then we have to ensure that we understand the counter arguments better than the people who propose them. Well, that's intellectually, spiritually, and as well. He always, he told me very clearly the last time we spoke, which was just a week before lockdown, that don't let your mind stop working, because that's something that that could easily happen to people in the pursuit of deen, that you think you've done studying now. I remember that once he taught us at the Medina Institute. He taught us Maqasid al-Sharia, and I said to him, I wrote some poetry for him on the board in Arabic, and so to display my love for him. It's in front of everyone was thinking. And so as he came into the class, I started to erase it, but then he saw it, and so he read it, and so I erased it, and so he said, well, now have you erased your love for me? So he was trying to be kind of literal in that way, just to kind of make fun of the situation. And he was that type of person. I would often think that he wasn't my teacher because he always make fun of me. So it was always this, this relationship that people have, that you really, it's memorable relationships, that moments that you'll definitely not forget. But at the same time, Shaykh Siraj, and I think this is something that I can say now, because of course he's passed on. Usually private conversations you're not supposed to share until someone, of course, has passed on. But I remember, his dreams that he would have while he was before Mecca, while he was in Mecca, and after he came home from Mecca. really reflected the value that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in him for the community, particularly in his defense for traditional scholars, particularly his teacher, Sir Muhammad ibn Ali al-Maliki, rahimahullah, who in no uncertain terms labeled Sheikh Siraj as a defender of of himself in the Western world. You have to remember who his teacher was, and one of the great features of Sheikh Siraj is because of his teacher and his teachers, and as a result of that, of course, he came under much criticism. There were certain scholars in Saudi Arabia who plead with the kingdom to behead his teacher, to kill his teacher in the 80s. So it was definitely a difficult situation. We have had scholars in Cape Town, like Ahmed Bihadin, rahimahullah ta'ala, who saw their teachers killed in Mecca a long time ago, and but Sayyid Muhammad Ali al-Maliki represented a scholar who could give certain arguments in such a confident way, because the arguments are based in Dalil, Quran and Sunnah, that they had no reason, to kill him. But unfortunately, what had happened then in the Western world was students of these same scholars started speaking about them. And Sheikh Siraj, he played a very significant role in that. And I remember when Yasir Qadi, the Dr. Yasir Qadi in America, and he was someone who had spoken against Muhammad al-Maliki, but recently he came out and apologized to Sayyid Muhammad al-Maliki directly. And I still showed Sheikh Siraj a clip of that, and he was very happy because he said, this is the same person that we would have to respond to previously, and now look at the end of my life, alhamdulillah, I'm glad to see he's come around. So Jazakallah khair for having this tribute. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him to be with Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be with his teachers, Sayyidina al-Maliki and the likes, of course. And may Allah unite us with him in Jannat al-Firdaus. And
inshallah. So I can't seem to find Fasih. I know Yusuf was smiling, so I'm imagining Yusuf also felt that Sheikh was treating him amazingly, and then also somebody else at the same time while Yasin was speaking. But if there isn't anything else that either of you would like to still say, I don't see Fasih here, but we need to close now. So I know at 8:15 is a live stream, Adhkar for and Quran, and as we say, a werksloon for the Sheikh. So I don't want to obviously have people engaged in this discussion and not in that gathering. So I would just like to know if we could recite the three kuls together, and then salawat, and then if Yasin, if you could just make a dua for us, inshallah, before we close, if you so wish, inshallah. La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد
ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له
كفوا أحد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد لله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له أحد. لا إله إلا الله ولله الحمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس
ملك
ملك
الناس
الناس من شر
إله
الوسواس
الناس من شر
الخناس
الوسواس
الذي
الخناس
يوسوس
الذي
في
يوسوس
صدور
في صدور
الناس
الناس من الجنة والناس.
لا إله إلا الله
إله إلا
والله
الله
أكبر
والله
ولله
أكبر ولله
الحمد.
الحمد.
بسم الله
بسم
الرحمن
الله
الرحيم
الرحمن
الحمد
الرحيم
لله
الحمد
رب
لله رب
العالمين
العالمين
الرحمن الرحيم
الرحمن
مالك
الرحيم مالك يوم الدين
إياك نعبد
إياك نعبد
وإياك
وإياك نستعين
اهدنا
اهدنا
الصراط
الصراط
المستقيم
المستقيم
صراط الذين
صراط
أنعمت
الذين أنعمت عليهم
غير
غير
المغضوب عليهم
المغضوب
ولا
عليهم ولا
الضالين.
الضالين.
Inshallah,
آمين.
yeah, if we can ask a fasih to render the salawat, inshallah, as would be done with occasions such as this. And even at the Azzawia, when either the might is in the masjid or before being taken out, it will be recited. And so, as we cannot do so for Sheikh, for us to do so now. And thereafter, the salawat, Yasin will inshallah lead us in a dua for Shaykh Seraj Hendricks as well as those who have departed from this virus, and as a result of this virus. Ultimately, Allah provides the means, and Allah is of course in control of all things, and also for shifa for those who continue to battle with this virus in varying degrees, inshallah, and for sabr for the Hendricks family and the others who have of course been related to Sheikh via familial bonds or through that pursuit of knowledge, inshallah. So without any further ado, Fasih.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
إلى حضرة النبي المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه وأنوار وذريته وأهل البيت الكرام. الفاتحة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله.
الفاتحة لرضاء الله تعالى، والفاتحة إلى سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه واعف عنه وعافه واكرم نزله واسع مدخله واغسله بماء وثلج وبرد ونقه من الخطايا كما ينقى الثوب الأبيض من الدنس، وأبدله دارا خير من داره وأهلا خير من أهله، وقه فتنة القبر وعذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا. اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيه على الإسلام، ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان. اللهم لا تحرمنا أجره ولا تضلنا بعده. اللهم عامله بما أنت أهل ولا تعامل بما هو أهل. اللهم اجز عن الإحسان إحسانا وعن الإساءة عفوا وغفرانا. اللهم إن كان محسنا فزد في إحسانه في حسناته، وإن كان مسيئا فتجاوز عن سيئاته. اللهم أدخله جنة من غير مناقش حساب ولا سابقة العذاب. اللهم آنسه في وحدتي وفي وحشتي وفي غربتي. اللهم أنزله منزلا مباركا وأنت خير المنزلين. We ask Allah as well for the sick. Allah, of course, cure all those people who are sick with any of the of the coronavirus or any particular other disease. اللهم اشفيهم يا رب اللهم اشفيهم يا رب اللهم اشفيهم يا رب اللهم رب الناس أذهب البأس اشف أنت شافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين يا فتاح يا عليم يا رزاق يا حكيم يا حي يا قيوم أذهب البأس رب الناس واشف أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما رب ارحمهما رب ارحمهما رب ارحمهم رب ارحمهن رب ارحمهن يا أكرم الأكرمين وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.
قال الله تعالى معبرا وآمرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم اللهم افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون بفضل دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Barakallah, and to the brothers Yusuf, Maulana, Yasin Kipi, Muhammad Fasih, Peterson, and all the other brothers and sisters who frequented the masjid of Azzawia, who were students of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks, the family of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks, and anybody watching this as well, who may now find themselves going to do research and reading up on the Shaykh, and perhaps find themselves also inspired to pursue the pursuits of Shaykh Seraj Hendricks. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your intentions and your fervor to, of course, remember the life of Sheikh, and may our words testify as Allah is our witness to the life of Shaykh Siraj, where we may not be necessarily filling the sufuf of his janazah and walking away from his qabr, having said many things about him that the malaika could witness. May this form part of that testimony, inshallah. Ameen. And may Allah place sabr in all the hearts of those who have lost the Shaykh. Yasin, yes, you may go ahead, Yasin, with some words, inshallah.
So I know on online his master's dissertation, Shaykh Siraj's master's dissertation on the role of tasawwuf in Islam in South Africa is readily available, and it's over 600 pages. So anyone who wants to learn about the role of tasawwuf, as it's been practiced within with the Muslims here in South Africa, they can just search for his master's thesis. You can just type the role of tasawwuf in South Africa, and you'll find this great masters and a really good contribution. If that was the only contribution he had made, it would have been enough, but it certainly wasn't. So I hope people will benefit through that, inshallah, as well.
Yes, I think Yasin, shukran for mentioning that there is something accessible to us right now. It doesn't need to for us to wait and to go and find the family distributing of his works. It is there. Please find yourself engaging that work, and I suppose many of those that have learned from Sheikh are available to even unpack that should you want that to happen. Our country has a wonderful history, albeit not a easy one, and especially for the Muslim community, having gone through slavery and having emerged from that a Muslim community, a jama'ah of Muslims able to delve deeply into knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the hands and at the feet of Shaykh such as Sheikh Seraj Hendricks. Today's slavery may be over, but we are battling with new forms of oppression, new forms of challenges that come for not only us as a community broadly, but even us as individuals, mentally, ideologically as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from such, and may his life have been a means of inspiring us to look beyond just his life and to the lives of those that he pointed us towards, that is that of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba as well. So without any further ado, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant shifa to those who are sick, especially in the family of Sheikh, as well as others who are battling with this virus, the COVID-19 virus, and other forms of illnesses. Jannah for those who have passed, and for us here to continue to learn and take along with us some of the learnings that we have taken from Shaykh Seraj Hendricks, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please be reminded to join the Azzawia Masjid's Facebook page at 8:15, whereby Adhkar will be rendered, and you can, of course, listen in on this Thursday night preceding Jumu'ah, where we can engage ourselves in the remembrance of Allah and as a means of thawab for the marhumin, inshallah. And that is without any further ado from myself, Shakil Garda, with Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.